Khamenei's fate unknown. Israeli sources claim supreme leader killed. Iran says he's alive. Israeli media outlets reported on Saturday that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, may have been killed in the joint US-Israeli strikes that began early Saturday morning. Channel 12, citing unnamed Israeli sources, stated there are growing indications that Khamenei was either killed or seriously injured during the attacks. The Israeli assessment was not based solely on satellite imagery showing extensive damage to Khamenei's Tehran compound, but on information from undisclosed sources within Israel's military and intelligence apparatus. Israeli officials told multiple outlets that several senior Iranian leaders had been targeted in coordinated strikes at locations where they had gathered earlier in the day. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi responded directly to the reports in an exclusive interview with NBC News. Speaking from Tehran amid ongoing strikes, Araghchi stated that Khamenei is still alive, as far as I know. He added that President Pezeshkian also survived, along with other senior officials, including the head of the judiciary and the Speaker of Parliament. All high-ranking officials are alive, Araghchi said. Everybody is now in their position, and we are handling this situation, and everything is fine. However, Araghchi acknowledged that one or two commanders were killed in the strikes, describing it as not a big problem. Satellite images show destroyed compound. New satellite imagery captured by Airbus on Saturday morning showed multiple structures within Khamenei's secure Tehran compound, heavily damaged or completely destroyed. The site, widely understood to function as the official residence and administrative headquarters of Iran's supreme leader, appeared reduced to rubble, with a column of black smoke visible in the images. The compound, located in central Tehran near University Street, had been cordoned off by Iranian security forces shortly before the strikes began. Roads leading to the area were blocked, and witnesses reported heavy security presence in the hours before explosions rocked the capital. An Iranian official told Reuters earlier that Khamenei was not in Tehran when the strikes occurred and had been transferred to a secure location. The official did not specify where Khamenei had been moved or when the transfer took place. It remains unclear whether the 86-year-old leader was inside the compound at the time of the strike. Khamenei has not been seen publicly in recent days, and no video or audio statement from him has been released since the attacks began. Senior commanders reportedly killed. Beyond Khamenei, Israeli and regional sources reported that multiple high-ranking Iranian military and political figures were targeted in Saturday's operation. Three sources familiar with Israel's military operations told Reuters that Iran's Defense Minister Amir Nasirzadeh and Revolutionary Guards Commander Mohammad Pakpour are believed to have been killed. Pakpour had taken over as head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, after Israel killed his predecessor, Hossein Salami, in June 2025, during a previous round of strikes. Israeli media also reported that Ali Shamkhani, a senior advisor to Khamenei and former secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, was among those targeted. Additional targets reportedly included the head of Iranian military intelligence and the armed forces chief of staff. Iranian state media confirmed that areas near the presidential palace and Khamenei's compound were struck, but downplayed reports of casualties among senior leadership. State-run IRNA news agency quoted sources in the presidential office saying Pezeshkian was unharmed, along with several other top officials. Israel's assessment: cautious but confident. Israeli officials expressed what one source described as cautious optimism that the operation, codenamed Roaring Lion, had achieved significant success in eliminating key Iranian leaders. However, they emphasized that definitive confirmation regarding the fate of those targeted had not yet been obtained. Channel 12 reported that the Israeli government's assessment of Khamenei's likely death came not from visual confirmation, but from intelligence gathered through other means. The network noted that Khamenei was expected to deliver a statement shortly, but suggested that if such a statement appeared, it may have been pre-recorded. Israel's military spokesman later stated that several senior figures essential to the management of the campaign and the regime's governance were eliminated, but declined to provide details on whether Khamenei was among them. The Israeli Defense Forces confirmed that the strikes targeted not only leadership compounds, but also critical military infrastructure. An illustration released by the IDF showed an advanced SA-65 air defense system near Kermanshah in western Iran that was destroyed in the operation. Throughout the war, and particularly during Operation Roaring Lion, the IDF has systematically targeted the defense array of the Iranian terrorist regime, the military said in a statement. The strikes that were completed expand the Israeli Air Force's freedom of operation in Iranian airspace. U.S. objectives: regime change. U.S. President Donald Trump, in a pre-recorded 8-minute address released shortly after the strikes began, described the operation as massive and ongoing, and called on Iranians to overthrow their government. "The hour of your freedom is at hand," Trump told the Iranian people, framing the military campaign not merely as a strike against nuclear facilities, but as an opportunity for regime change. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu echoed the call, stating that the operation would create the conditions for the brave Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. Both leaders emphasized that the strikes aim to eliminate what they described as an existential threat posed by Iran's nuclear program, ballistic missile capabilities, and regional activities supporting groups in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Conflicting reports and uncertainty. The conflicting statements from Israeli and Iranian sources created widespread confusion about Khamenei's actual status. Iran's state media made no mention of any harm to the supreme leader, and officials maintained a unified message that senior leadership had survived. However, Khamenei's continued absence from public view, combined with the extent of damage shown in satellite imagery, fueled speculation across regional media and among Iran analysts. Israel's Cannes state television reported that there is no contact with Khamenei and that his fate remains unknown. The Times of Israel noted that if Khamenei had been killed, it would represent the most significant decapitation strike against an adversarial regime in modern history. Middle East Eye reported that it could not independently verify claims about casualties among Iranian leadership, and NBC News stated it had not confirmed the reports through its own sources. Iran's retaliation continues. Regardless of Khamenei's status, Iran's military apparatus continued to function. The country launched dozens of ballistic missiles toward Israel throughout Saturday, with approximately 40 missiles fired by mid-afternoon local time. Most were intercepted by Israeli air defenses, causing only minor injuries. Iran also targeted U.S. military bases across the region, striking facilities in Qatar, Kuwait, the UAE, Bahrain, Jordan, and Iraq. Qatar's defense ministry reported successfully intercepting the second wave of Iranian missile attacks. One civilian was killed in Abu Dhabi when debris from an intercepted Iranian missile struck the ground, according to the UAE's state news agency. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a statement declaring that all Israeli and US military targets in the Middle East have been struck by the powerful blows of Iranian missiles, and vowed that operations would continue relentlessly until the enemy is decisively defeated. Global reaction: calls for restraint. International responses focused on calls for de-escalation. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned both the US-Israeli strikes and Iran's retaliation, stating that the actions undermine international peace and security, and calling for an immediate ceasefire. France's President Emmanuel Macron warned that the outbreak of war between the United States, Israel, and Iran would carry grave consequences for international peace and security. Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi, who had been mediating nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran until hours before the strikes, expressed dismay. "Active and serious negotiations have yet again been undermined," he wrote on social media, urging the United States not to get sucked in further. "This is not your war." Egypt's foreign minister warned the escalation would have dire repercussions on regional security and called for prioritizing diplomatic solutions. The question remains. As of Saturday evening, the central question remained unanswered. Is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei alive? Iranian officials insist he is. Israeli sources believe he is not. Satellite images show his compound destroyed. No public statement from Khamenei has been released. The answer will determine not only the immediate trajectory of the conflict, but the future of the Islamic Republic itself. If Khamenei has been killed, Iran faces a succession crisis in the midst of war. If he survived, the regime's credibility in deflecting Israeli strikes remains intact. For now, both sides are operating without certainty, Iran maintaining the appearance of continuity, Israel expressing confidence in a successful strike, and the rest of the world watching for the first definitive proof of what happened inside that compound in Tehran.